The calculated misstep. I've spent 12 years as a detective learning one universal truth. People don't reveal who they are when they succeed. They reveal themselves when they think they've won. Standing in my detached garage that Tuesday, I ran a thumb over the chrome bumper of my 1969 Ford Mustang Boss 429. The Calypso coral paint glowed under the LED arrays like a banked fire. Beside it sat the 1970 Z28 Camaro and the plum-crazy 71 Dodge Challenger. Together, they represented $220,000 of steel and history, and 15 years of my life. According to the Pinewood Estates HOA, this building didn't exist. That was the beauty of it. I'd bought this specific lot because the garage sat on a separately deeded, grandfathered commercial parcel that predated the neighborhood by nearly 2 decades. I'd filed every permit, satisfied every zoning board, and registered Harrison Classic Restorations as a legitimate business. Karen Whitfield, our HOA president, had exactly zero authority over this dirt. But Karen, a 52-year-old retired real estate agent with the aggressive efficiency of a buzzsaw, didn't care for jurisdiction. She cared for community standards. Another notice, Mike. She'd barked from the sidewalk 3 days earlier, her eyes hidden behind oversized designer shades. 7 letters, and those eyesores are still there. This isn't a junkyard. It's a licensed place of business, Karen, I replied, my voice flat professional. On private, non-HOA land, you're trespassing. She just smirked, that tight, thin-lipped expression of a woman who was used to getting her way. We'll see about that. Property values are a collective responsibility. I watched her walk away, noting the way she glanced back to snap a photo with her iPhone. Documentation was burned into my DNA. I already had a manila folder labeled correspondence. Whitfield. I knew the pattern of people like her. Observation, documentation, escalation, action. We were currently hovering at escalation. What she didn't know, what none of my neighbors knew, was that the quiet guy who spent his weekends under hood was a veteran police detective. My house was a fortress of 4K surveillance cameras with off-site cloud backups. I saw every drive-by, every 14-minute perimeter inspection she conducted while whispering into her phone. The trap was set, she just didn't know she was the one walking into it. The opportunity Karen was waiting for arrived in the form of a federal training seminar, 10 days at Quantico, advanced investigation techniques, interstate fraud coordination, the kind of training where you surrender your phone at the door, total digital isolation. Before I left, I made sure to mention it to Mrs. Wilson while checking the mail. Heading to Virginia for 10 days, I said, loud enough for Karen's nearby kitchen window to catch the drift. House will be empty, see you Sunday week. Karen's surveillance intensified within the hour. While I was in Virginia learning how to dismantle high-level fraud rings, Karen was back in Pinewood Estates playing at being a mastermind. Thanks to my cloud-synced alerts, which I checked during my one Saturday evening window, I saw the highlight reel. She'd been busy, she'd spent hours measuring my driveway, photographing my business license, and most interestingly, printing out forms. She wasn't just complaining anymore, she was building a case. Karen's research had led her to a specific county environmental loophole. According to local regulations, vehicles containing hazardous materials, oil, gasoline, brake fluid, that remained stationary for extended periods could be classified as abandoned property subject to emergency removal. It was a rule meant for illegal dumping in forests, but Karen decided it applied to my pristine collection. She even created a ghost. She registered a fake Gmail account, Lisa Thompson at pinewoodhoa.com, Lisa Thompson, property manager. It was a classic move, create a layer of separation so the HOA board wouldn't be directly tied to the initial report. On Monday morning, my 7th day at Quantico, Karen dressed in her best power suit. She called Riverside Towing, a company that specialized in hazardous environmental recovery. This is Lisa Thompson, she told the dispatcher, her voice practiced and cold. We have an environmental hazard at 142 Maple. 3 abandoned vehicles leaking petroleum products into the groundwater. We need emergency removal immediately. She signed the indemnification forms as Lisa, using a modified version of her own handwriting. She presented the tow driver, a guy named Tommy, with a forged environmental hazard report she'd mocked up to look like a county document. The security footage was cinematic. 3 flatbeds arrived. Karen stood on the sidewalk, arms crossed, nodding with righteous authority as my $220,000 collection was winched onto the trucks. She looked like a conqueror. She had no idea she was filming her own confession in ultra-high definition. I returned on Sunday evening. The garage was empty. The silence was deafening. I didn't call Karen. I didn't go to her house. I didn't even yell. Instead, I went into my office, opened my laptop, and began the most satisfying report of my career. I spent 4 hours compiling the surveillance footage. I had her making the phone calls. I had her signing the forged documents. I had her Lisa Thompson emails, which I traced to her home IP address within 20 minutes using the tools I'd just refreshed at Quantico. This wasn't an HOA dispute anymore. This was a felony. Monday morning, I didn't go to the HOA office. I went to the precinct. I sat down with Detective Miller, a guy I'd worked 36 cases with. I laid the manila folder on his desk. "Hey Miller, I'd like to report a theft," I said, leaning back. "Grand larceny, fraud, forgery of government documents, and I've got the suspect on video from 6 different angles." An hour later, I was in an unmarked cruiser, trailing a patrol unit toward Pinewood Estates. We found Karen in the middle of a beautification committee, meeting on her front lawn. She was holding a clipboard, pointing at a neighbor's overgrown hedge, when the 2 cruisers pulled up. I stepped out of the car, adjusting my jacket. I saw the blood drain from her face. She tried to recover, putting on that mask of indignant authority. "Michael, you're back," she said, her voice a bit too high. "We had to take emergency action regarding those hazards in your garage, the community safety." "Save it, Karen," I interrupted. My voice was low, steady, the voice of a man who already knew the ending of the story. "I'm not here as your neighbor." Detective Miller stepped forward. "Karen Whitfield, you're under arrest for grand larceny, forgery, and falsifying business records." The clipboard hit the grass. "What? That's ridiculous. I'm the HOA president. I have the authority." "You don't," I said, stepping closer. "That garage is on commercial land. It's not in your jurisdiction. And Lisa Thompson isn't real, Karen, but the felony you committed by signing her name on a towing contract certainly is." Her eyes went wide. She looked at the handcuffs Miller was pulling from his belt. I was protecting the property values. They were leaking. It was an environmental. "The only thing leaking here is your defense," I said with a thin, sarcastic smile. "Riverside Towing already gave us their statement. They've also provided the forged hazard report you gave them. Turns out they don't like being tricked into stealing cars. It's bad for business." The neighbors were coming out of their houses now. The beautification committee watched in stunned silence as the HOA queen was spun around and pressed against the hood of a cruiser. "You can't do this," she shrieked, the mask finally shattering. "I did this for all of you. Michael, tell them it's just an HOA matter." "Actually," I said, leaning in so only she could hear, "it's a criminal matter. And since the value of the property stolen exceeds $200,000, you're looking at a Class B felony. That's 5 to 25 years, Karen. I hope the community standards in state prison meet your expectations." The fallout was a scorched earth event. The HOA board, terrified of being named as co-conspirators, immediately removed Karen and issued a formal public apology. They even paid the $12,000, recovery and storage, fee to get my cars back from the impound lot where Karen had hidden them. The cars were returned on Tuesday, not a scratch on them. Karen's restored property values took a bit of a hit when she had to put her own house up for sale to cover her legal fees. She took a plea deal, 3 years probation, 500 hours of community service, and a permanent criminal record that ensured she'd never work in real estate or sit on a board ever again. The day she moved out, I was in my driveway, buffing the hood of the Mustang. She had to drive past me one last time, her SUV packed with the remnants of her untouchable life. I didn't wave, I didn't gloat. I just stopped the buffer, looked her right in the eye, and checked my watch. I waited until she was almost past before I spoke, loud enough for the open window. "Hey Karen, you missed a spot on the sidewalk. Community standards, right?" She didn't look back, she just kept driving. I went back to the Mustang. The chrome was perfect. The garage was quiet. And for the first time in 6 months, the neighborhood felt exactly the way it was supposed to. People like Karen always think they're the heroes of their own stories. They think rules are weapons to be used against others, never realizing those same rules can be turned back on them. She thought she was cleaning up the neighborhood. Instead, she just made it easier for me to take out the trash. If you ever find yourself facing down someone who thinks they're above the law just because they have a clipboard and a title, remember one thing: they always leave a trail. You just have to be patient enough to let them finish walking it.